Hey there everybody. So this video I just wanted to make, I had mentioned previously in my other video that I had a few other CRTs that I wanted to specifically make videos on. This was one of them. This here in front of me is a Sony GVM-1311Q, which is a surprisingly rare video monitor to try and find, mainly due to the fact that these things don't really, there wasn't very many of them in general, but from what you could hear from the name of it, so like I said down here, it's a GVM. It's not actually a PVM or a BVM like some people might know. And it has a pretty interesting quirk about itself. So these GVMs are old. They're from the early 1990s all the way to probably mid-1990s, something like that. But the one nice thing about these was these could actually be used as computer monitors, not just as SD video sets that would only do 240p 40i. So this in particular can do 480p, and it can go, I think, all the way up to like 36 kilohertz scan rate, which I'm not really sure how much resolution you can push out of it on a computer monitor because I've never actually tested it. I've just been mainly using it for 240p and 480p. And so sometimes 480i, but not really, because, I mean, if you got 480p, you might as well use it. But yeah, so this particular one is from 1993, and right now I have it running through S-Video on my Super Nintendo with 240p test suite on it. And I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit about this here. So as you can see, the screen is pretty dang clear for on 240p. Get a little shot of Artemio over here. I've done my best to kind of calibrate this set already. So what's interesting about this set is this thing doesn't have a service menu like a lot of PVMs do. So since this was back in the era of the PVM, the 40 series PVMs, which all had used potentiometers to adjust any settings on these things. So I had to do the same. So down on this side here, after you take off the panel, there's a whole bunch of potentiometers that go down here. There's some on the neck board. There's some in the other side of the board. There's like 7 or 8 different boards in this thing that you have to take a look at, but 3 of them in particular have a lot of the adjustments you need. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Also, what's neat about this monitor here is this thing supports RGB, but it didn't support component because that wasn't really a thing at that time. So it supports 480p RGB, and right now, like I said, it is running on S-Video, but if you go down here, there is some switches down here to let you choose between RGBA, RGBB, S-Video, and composite input, because this also does have composite like everything else. And then there's a few adjustments here for adjusting horizontal and vertical shift, as well as the picture, which I think is just contrast, as well as vertical hold, and also this auto size feature, but I never use it because it's not really that good. It has a cute little adjustment tool here, and then all your other just standard knobs for picture, volume, brightness, the color, and the hue. So, yeah. Also be careful of this thing too, because just like with the older, how should I say, like Apple monitors and stuff, like this thing can break off pretty easily because it is plastic hinged in it. So I do want to show you a couple cool things about this monitor here, specifically on the test patterns. So like I said, I've tried to adjust this as best as I can. However, there are some small minor issues on the top left and bottom right. For some reason, the top left cuts off a little bit and the bottom right tends to droop a little bit. And this monitor also has another weird issue, which it's not displaying right now, but I've noticed if I leave it unplugged and then plug it back in for a long period of time, the edges on this side and this side, or horizontally basically, will start shrinking and stretching a whole bunch. I don't really know if I can replicate that right now, but I'm trying to figure out that issue, and I have a funny feeling it's due to some capacitor of some sort on the deflection side of this thing. However, right now it's working pretty good, so yeah. Well, anyways, let me go ahead and show you a little bit of Super Mario World on this, just to give you a good idea of how it looks. Alright, so I got Super Mario World loaded here. As you can see, it's a really clear image. Like I said, this is running at 240p. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit better here just to show you. It's awesome. So these things, I can't remember exactly the TV line count of these, but they are pretty high, especially for their time back in the day. I think it was about 600 or so. But being a 13-inch monitor, having some really well-defined scan lines on this set really makes 240p images pop. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. In terms of 480p, I'll probably get something running on it here pretty soon, but it's a little difficult because, like I said, the RGB, this has RGB, but the setup is a little weird. So, RGB on this thing, here, let me go ahead and show you in the back. It's different, so it's because it's older. It uses RGB with a DB9 connector. Right there, it says RGBA. So you can convert that from the DB9's port to VGA. However, getting, let's say, component or something on it, you know, from a GameCube or whatnot to run on this thing, you'd need obviously a component to an RGB transcoder. And then, yeah, the RGB down there is a DB25 connector, which I haven't figured out yet, nor have I seen anybody else figure that out on how to get stable video coming from there. But yeah, there's a couple other just things back here, like the audio out. A couple other buttons here, like color for both analog and digital. Superimpose, I don't know what that means. And then you have back here, obviously, your composite and your S-video switches, which have pass-throughs on them as well. So yeah, but that's the RGB input right there. And like I said, you can get 480p out of it, but it's a little tricky on how to do it just because it's not component or it's not standard VGA RGB or anything like that. And the other thing too is this 9-pin is wired differently from from most how should I say, most older monitors that had this as well. For some reason the pins on it are just different, and so you have to look out for what sort of DB9 to VGA conversion cable you're using, because that will sometimes not work depending on which one you get. Now, the one I got does work, and luckily it was verified by other people who did have this same GVM, that it was wired correctly, so I did buy that one. It was really cheap, like $10 on Amazon, whatnot, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, overall, this is an awesome monitor. If I do get 480p, I'll probably make a video showing that. And if I ever do open up this GVM once again, I'll probably show the internals, just to kind of give you a good idea of what you'd be looking at if you were ever going to service this thing. And trust me, it looks pretty bad inside. Like I said, there's boards stacked on boards all over the place. On the right side, you have your big power board. On the left side, you have a board, and then another board on top of that board, and then on the bottom is just a mess. So I guess that's just how Sony's are. They're pretty overbuilt like that. Though they do have a lot of things that can go potentially wrong with them, so you really need somebody more experienced to be able to work on them. But yeah, here, let me go ahead and show you a different game, one that I like to display other images on too. Alright, so some of you might be familiar with the Konami logo already, but this is Gradius 3. Let me go ahead and skip here. I mean, this thing's just an incredible little monitor. It's just, yeah. The other cool thing to note, too, before I leave this video to be, I guess, finished, is at 480p, especially through RGB, it's a little weird. I've seen computer monitors do this, too, where if you have it on 480i mode, the whole screen is actually offset to the right, but the moment you put it in 480p, it snaps back into the center. I'm not really sure if there's a fix for that or anything, because it does aggravate me a little when I'm playing GameCube games if it doesn't support 480p. And obviously, I don't have a modded GameCube or anything, so I can't force 480p on some of the games that don't support it. So I've been trying to figure that out, see if there's something really wrong with that, or if it's just the fact that it's an older monitor and it doesn't properly set itself in the middle, even at 480i, so I gotta figure that out. But on S-Video Composite, 480i, 240p doesn't really matter, it's already set in the middle. And they have two different adjustments for Composite S-Video and then RGB, so if you're adjusting the monitor on the potentiometer side, there's two separate groups of potentiometers to adjust the video position for, so that's all I got. I'll probably make some more videos on this just because there's not very many videos on the GVM-1311Q. But yeah, I'll be glad to make it, and let me know what you want to see.